Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. But I broke this into two pieces. So one is the tools that we're using for research, and the other was the data. Anyway, there's so much to this, and I'm not convinced everybody's got their arms completely around what's here. But I thought maybe, Michael, you could talk about this process, but before that, just a little history of this and how it's kind of come together and what the thoughts were behind it.
Yeah, so the libraries has been offering research data services specifically for over 7 years now. And organizationally, we've changed a little bit and become more of a separate team. And so, I'm currently the head of our research data services team, and we've grown a little bit. We just added a new team member this past August to increase our capacity to provide support to the campus community. And our goal has always been to be able to provide research data support throughout all phases of the research life cycle, which is what's highlighted on that graphic there. So we've really built out resources around each of those steps that researchers have to go through to make sure that they can stay in compliance with mandates and requirements from funding agencies, and also, beyond that, just be able to follow research data management best practices in their work.
Do you find that faculty have difficulty finding your services because you're in the library? Or I'm curious what your thoughts are in the placement of the research data services. And
I,
maybe I'm getting off topic here,
I
Russ.
put a
No,
comment.
it's
Like,
exactly what
the
I've been
social work
wondering.
has staff
That's
that
my question too.
hired staff that does that. Like they have a person we go to in school social work, but I don't know that the faculty and staff know that there's library services that do similar things. Or I wonder if our data person even collaborates with you or accesses those services and we don't even know about it. Maybe we just think they're clever and they aren't that clever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still opportunity. So I've been in the role that I'm in now as head of research data services for about 2 years, and still making new connections and trying new ways like here, right? Maybe I'll learn about other folks that I can get in contact with, and continuing to build these relationships on campus so that people know what we offer, know when it's a good idea to turn to us for assistance. But we also don't want to be recreating the wheel in different units on campus, right? And having redundant resources essentially. So wanting to figure out how we can play to our respective strengths. And one of the great advantages I think to having these services in the libraries is that we're a centralized entity on campus, where folks know that they can turn for services no matter what department or unit you are in. Students, faculty, staff, everybody can come to us for support. And this is a growing area for us. Again, there are growing requirements for what researchers have to comply with in order to receive research funding. So we provide resources to help researchers know about what is now in place or what is going to be in place in the future, and also then providing the specific resources they need in order to comply with those requirements. Again, Texas Data Repository, Data Management Plan tool, in addition to some of the other resources I'll mention here in a minute. And one area where I think we perhaps are providing somewhat of a more unique service than is offered through other units on campus is covering technologies that researchers are trying to get exposure to manage data more efficiently and effectively. So we have a lot of trainings that we offer as part of our Data and Donuts workshop series, which some of you might have heard of. It's
Yep.
a regular series we've offered for years now, and it's quite popular on campus. And also we're able to leverage the spaces we have, principally in the Perry Castaneda Library, which is just at the heart of campus, and has some really great learning labs where we can bring folks in to have special events and to have trainings so that they can get exposed to the resources that we offer while also picking up new research skills.
So can you take us through the life cycle here?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of these I've already mentioned. and kind of go clockwise around this diagram. So everything from the earliest planning stages we can support. Usually the point at which folks start to get in contact with us is when they are getting ready to draft a data management plan. And typically that's because they are required to do that as part of preparing a grant proposal. And typically what we'll do is work with researchers to help them determine how they can best utilize the data management plan tool, which is a resource available to students, faculty, and staff here on campus. It's
And is
not
that a tool outside of UT?
That's correct. Yeah. So this is used
Okay.
by many other universities across the United States to help researchers there as well manage the crafting of a data management plan. So if you log into this tool, which you can using your regular UT EID, will take you to an account where you can create data management plan drafts. You can create multiple plans there. You can share your plans with other researchers. If you're collaborating, you can work together on a plan. You can also share it with me. This is pretty common for researchers that would like me to review what they write prior to submitting their plan. And the great thing about this is you can select your particular funding agency, and in some cases, the particular program that you are applying for, and you will see the template that you're expected to use. And then once you start to fill out that template, there is specific guidance that tells you what is expected in these sections. So, you have a description of, essentially what you're supposed to put there, but that doesn't tell you what is specifically available to you as a researcher here at UT Austin, or all of the specifics that you might want to dive into in order to provide a full response. And so that guidance is provided there, and many of our researchers find that particularly helpful because these requirements are in some cases quite new, and it's not necessarily something that all researchers on campus have done before. One of the things I always mention when I'm talking about this tool is, you don't need to be pursuing grant funding in order for this tool to make sense for you. The reason why many of these funding agencies now have these requirements in place is because it's a good research best practice. You don't want to, get months into a project and be, thinking on the fly about how you should be managing your data. You want to be, figuring all of that out, hopefully, or at least coming up with a plan at the outset, right? Where, we're talking about this earlier today, the different storage options that are available to you here on campus, right? Well, they're not all approved for storing confidential data, right? So some of them are approved for that, some are not. Just as an example, and this is one that I usually call out of, you need to think through these things in advance to make sure that you are protecting your data in the way that you are supposed to, and adhering to university policy and other guidelines for managing your
consultation or whatever. Is there a fee for that, or is this just part of the big UT package?
Yep, it's through the libraries. So
right.
again, we support everybody. There's no fee involved. In rare instances, we might be asked if we can be written into a grant proposal, but typically we're operating, no cost recovery. It's just providing that service to the campus community. And you do not have to be a PI. So, we help everybody from undergrads to research staff to faculty members, anyone that comes to us seeking research support. And I will also mention that my team, the research data services team, is housed under the unit of research support and digital innovation. So we are one piece of the research support apparatus within the libraries.
But one thing I found interesting was the tools. So you got a lot of tools. References to tools these happen to be open source, but there's another companion slide to this that is proprietary, that we have to pay for, or I assume your grant's going to pay for them, or some funding out of your department's going to pay for them. But anyway, if you don't have that, you've got options up here that I assume these are kind of the free options, right?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you bring up the qualitative data analysis guide. So this is an area where, as I mentioned, we're growing over time to expand the support we can provide. So our support for qualitative data in particular is somewhat limited at this time. And so what we're really doing, if folks come to us with qualitative data questions, we typically point them to this guide as, a list of resources that they can consult for further assistance. In addition to providing research support through my unit, Research Data Services, we also have subject area liaisons who are responsible for supporting specific departments and schools on campus. So Usually, I will be collaborating. Members of my team will be collaborating with liaison for the department from which a researcher is coming from if they are looking for support. And so sometimes we'll pass a consultation off, from one to the other, depending on our respective areas of expertise. But one of the areas where we collaborate quite often is in helping researchers identify potential data sets that they can work with. So there are just a massive number of free and open data sets that researchers can begin to make use of without having to jump through any hoops. These aren't, proprietary data sets. They're things that you can freely access and download from different locations online, but they can be tough to find. I mean, there's just so much out there. It's hard to maybe identify what is available to you and what you should start working with, or how to clean it up and access it, and really get started carrying out the work that you want to do. So our liaison librarians are great with that because they have that subject area expertise. My team just tends to have a well-rounded knowledge of data sets that could be useful for researchers across different disciplines. So again, this is an area where if somebody's coming to us looking for data, it might be folks on my team working with a liaison that has subject area expertise to identify data.
But this is the library guides, all 504 of them.
Yeah.
And this feels like where your liaisons are residing across this domain of these different guides. And the one that I thought, I was thinking through some of the things that different people are doing research on, and I'm in the business school at McCombs, but the one that I thought I would test is text analysis. So lo and behold, you go through the 504 guides and there's a text analysis. And if you click on it, what do you get? A whole bunch of resources for doing text analysis, including tools, like pretty significant tools, I thought. And I assume there's a liaison person that probably understands text analysis. Would that
So
be
we have a few. This isn't so we have subject area expertise and we have technical area expertise, and in some cases they overlap. Some of our liaisons, in addition to being very knowledgeable in a particular academic subject, also have cultivated a particular set of skills. And in this case, one of our experts in text analysis, who's responsible for this guide, is our European Studies librarian, Ian Goodale. And so this, he's a very active GitHub user, and develops tools to help researchers with text data mining work. And some of these things that he's highlighting here are actual tools that he's built himself. But there are others who also have some expertise in this area as well. So, it's not uncommon for somebody to come to the libraries and there to be multiple people that technically are capable of providing assistance in this area. And then it's interesting that you highlight this text analysis guide because I thought you were going to call it the text data mining guide, which is an area where we're seeing a lot of growing demand on campus. That the text analysis is kind of the next stage, but the earlier part of the process that researchers are sometimes struggling with is just accessing the corpus that they want to work with.
Yeah.
And we're getting more and more questions, and specifically questions about how researchers can access content that we subscribe to through the libraries, where we have a contract with different publishers. And in many cases, there are limitations on how researchers can utilize certain content or how they can access it. And those contract negotiations are sometimes ongoing in particular cases, and agreements change over time. And there's a lot of interest right now in AI, of course, and so publishers are starting to view their content in a slightly different light, I think, because of that. And yeah, so that other guide on text data mining is pretty new. That came out just last month, where we're continuing to build these.
Probably there's not a big awareness of just the depth of all this, because that out of 504 guides, I just dived into one, and there's like a lot there. And you mentioned the data mining one, similar, and then all these other ones. So there's just a tremendous amount to work with here.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of these guides are extremely detailed, where they have, dozens of sub pages that you can navigate through to find really detailed content.
Yeah, and so you've got a curator, an expert curator across each domain.
Exactly.
Pulling
Yeah.
this stuff
Yeah.
together.
Somebody is responsible, or a team of folks in the libraries are responsible for each of those guides.
So basically, the getting through the plan, the find, create, process, organize, and analyze is a little bit what we just talked about.
Yeah, so finding data is usually the next step where we're providing support. We'll get folks asking us, where can I find this type of data? Does this exist? If so, how can I get access to it? Other times they already know what they want, but they might not have the ability to access it on their own because it's proprietary data that we may or may not have access to. They're checking to see if we have a subscription to a particular platform. Sometimes the libraries is in a position where, we are able to support access to something if it's something that is, affordable and can benefit all of campus, not just, is going to be useful to one particular researcher. But other times it's, a lot of these data products can be very expensive. It might not be something that we can purchase right away. It might go on our, what we call the wish list of things that, we would love to be able to provide to the campus community. But we don't have a budget to buy everything that might potentially be useful. So in many cases we're getting questions about proprietary data sets as well, and we do subscribe to many proprietary platforms that provide data access. And it's interesting you mentioned being in McCombs. Our business liaison librarian Loretta Wallace has a lot of expertise in supporting the McCombs researchers who need access to certain proprietary data sets, where that's maybe a little more common than it is for other schools and departments on campus. And so again, there's an area of overlap where we're often communicating to figure out how we can best support researchers.
So once the research, maybe the study is completed, then you're moving on to the other side of the loop, right?
That's right. And so at any stage, researchers can set up a consultation with myself, members of my team, liaison librarians that we have on staff, who again have that subject area expertise that can be very helpful in many situations. Oftentimes these consultations are now over Zoom, but we can meet with folks in person when that's helpful. We're always glad to do that. We have great spaces that are designed for that. And so we've also made it as easy as we can for people to see our schedule, see our availability, schedule an appointment. You don't have to email back and forth to set that up. You just go pick a date and time on the calendar and let us know what you want to talk about, and we're able to meet with you to discuss your specific research scenario. One of the options that we provide support for is the Texas Data Repository, which is our institutional data repository here at UT Austin. But we can also help researchers utilize any other data repository that they might be trying to make use of for sharing the research data sets.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but some of the data that comes out of, for example, the Texas Advanced Computing Center can be gigantic, or maybe ginormous. Is that a better word? Uh, do you host that as well, or is it too big?
So that's a good question. We do have a pilot project that we have worked on for a number of years with the Texas Advanced Computing Center to explore how we can host larger data sets through the Texas Data Repository. We actually have an active subcommittee of the Texas Data Repository Steering Committee that is working on exploring expanding our support for larger data sets. Right now, it's a bit limited. The largest individual files that we can support in the Texas Data Repository are 3.7 gigabytes. We can support larger data sets, larger collections of individual files. Those can be 50 gigabytes or more in some cases. But we do have a limitation right now around individual file size that we're working on identifying solutions for that.
Got it. Okay. So interestingly, I found that the Information Security Office has probably the most complete catalog here of the various different places to store data. But Mario, you can validate this or not, but anyway, it looked like a pretty solid list to me.
Yeah, we point to this list a lot, Russ. This is the definitive, what we would consider the definitive approved list of approved cloud storage services on
Okay.
campus.
And maybe, Michael, you could talk about this a little bit because it is qualified by the different requirements. By everything that matters seems to be on this grid. But can you take us through those real quick from published to the IRB?
Yeah, so I also point folks to this, in just about every research data management best practices session that I lead because it's such a great resource, right? And we want to make sure that researchers are aware of these, policies pertaining to how they should be managing their research data using the cloud platforms that are available to them here at UT.
But when we get down here, it's a little bit more, maybe more useful for somebody. Where am I going to store my research data? And I know cloud infrastructure, that's more I'm building something, right? I'm building something in GitHub or whatever. Like I'm coding something or constructing something.
Yeah. If you're using the high performance computing resources of a commercial provider like Amazon Web Services in your work, then you would
When
want
we're
to.
using any of the big three, so they're all listed and they cover a lot of our domains. But really, is it the cloud storage services and the cloud survey services? Those feel like the ones that are maybe more on target for research.
Yeah, and also cloud storage services, that can accommodate any type of data, right? And video data, audio data, text data that researchers are collecting and putting in Box or Google Drive. So that's usually where I'm trying to in presentations I give hammer home that depending on the type of data you're working with, it might be appropriate to put in Box, but not on Google Drive, right? And then cloud survey services, this comes up quite a bit as well with folks asking, should I use Qualtrics? Can I use Google Form? Can I use, the Microsoft survey forms? So Qualtrics and the Microsoft option are usually what we're referring folks to for research surveys.